Hey guys, Jared here. We got something special for y'all today. We are going to actually do a tour of a battlefield through video for y'all. First time we've ever done this on the Blue and Gray channel, and I couldn't do this alone, so had to bring in the heavyweights for this one. So without further ado, y'all know this guy, Mr. Aaron Siever. Aaron, tell us about where we are today.
We're at Toms Brook. Right now, we're sitting in the parking lot of the Round Hill Church, and this would have been the position of the Union infantry during the Battle of Toms Brook. Now, the infantry does not participate in the battle, but this would have been their camping area. And just off to my left, behind the camera, is going to be Round Hill, and that is where Phil Sheridan will go and watch the Battle of Toms Brook on October 9th, 1864.
So stay tuned. We're going to show you all the stuff that deals with the Battle of Toms Brook, a very underrated battle in 1864 in the Shenandoah Valley. Stay tuned.
All right, standing here in the rear of the Toms Brook battlefield, this is actually where the artillery and infantry, as well as a lot of cattle and things like that the Union Army has been driving toward Winchester, are going to be. All around us here at the Round Hill Church and out through the fields here behind Round Hill. Now, what ends up happening is that the Union Army has been moving north or down the Shenandoah Valley toward Winchester. They've been burning everything in sight. Crops, killing livestock, taking livestock. So we're getting toward the end of what is known as the burning. This has incensed the Confederates, as many of the men in the Confederate cavalry are from this area. They're from Rockingham County, Shenandoah County, the Toms Brook area here in Shenandoah County. So they're pretty upset about what's happening. And Thomas Rosser, who's been basically put in command of the Confederate cavalry arm, has been told by Early to keep pressing the Union troops. Keep up the pressure. Go to Winchester if you can. So what has happened is October 6th, there's an engagement at Brock's Gap. October 7th, an engagement just inside of Shenandoah County along Mill Creek, where Rosser will actually defeat Custer's men and take several forges, recapture some livestock, and take several wagons. And Rosser will become the savior of the valley at that point, as he is punishing Custer's men on the back road. October 8th, they will move here to the area of Toms Brook, and off to the west will be another sharp fight. Actually, if we were to go straight down this road here, Mount Olive Road, we would eventually run into Mount Olive Church, and that is where that fight's going to take place on October 8th. What happens there, we'll get to that when we get out there, but the fact that the Confederates are still pressuring the Union troops here is going to lead to something that I think is telling. You have Phil Sheridan in command of the Union Army, and what Phil is going to say, what Sheridan's going to tell his commander is, you need to attack them. He wants it done on October 8th. It's not done. What he will do is send Merritt from this area, Wesley Merritt, toward Toms Brook with a little reconnaissance, not a whole lot. They'll send Thomas Russell Lowell out toward Mount Olive, and that's where that skirmish will happen, but it is not a major advance. What ends up happening is this makes Sheridan upset. He will go and find his cavalry commander, Torbett, and he will tell him, tomorrow you are to go out and whip the rebel cavalry or get whipped yourself. So Sheridan is having none of it. And furthermore, he tells him he's going to go to the top of Round Hill, which is kind of hard to see through the trees there, but he's going to go to the top of Round Hill, and he is going to observe the battle. Nothing like having your boss look over your shoulder to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do. So that's kind of the beginning of the end for the Confederate cavalry here in the Shenandoah Valley, as they are about to meet twice their number and be driven quite a ways away from where they are. Staying here along the back road, and this is where this October 8th action is going to occur, the beginning of it at least. We're in the parking lot of the Mount Olive United Methodist Church in the little hamlet of Mount Olive, and this is where Custer's men are coming to. He will actually camp just north of this, where we're standing. But Thomas Rosser's men have been pressing him again since October 6th, October 7th, October 8th. They'll fight here, a sharp skirmish here in Mount Olive, as Rosser is just hammering that rear guard of George Custer's men. Custer's getting frustrated. He wants to attack, but he's been told by Alfred Torbert basically to just ignore the Confederates. However, Torbert is going to get told that he needs to attack by his commander, Sheridan. Now, all these attacks, they're successful for the Confederates. They've been harassing the Union forces all this time. They're successful. They're bolstered. You know, even though their mounts are wore out, the men themselves are wore out. They've been chasing the Union Army for days, and they are roughly 20 miles from any support. The infantry is back near Mount Jackson. So Rosser will come up here. As he gets closer to Custer's main body, he is going to turn around and make a retrograde movement back down to a more defensible position. As he does so, Wesley Merritt over by the Valley Pike has dispatched Colonel Lowell and his men toward Mount Olive to assist Custer. Lowell will come around and he will realize that he is now on the retreat route of the Confederates from this part of the skirmish. And there will be another action that happens down here where Rosser will have to cut his way through Lowell's men in order to gain the defensive position he's looking for. This is just going to do more to bolster his attitude, to make him think that he is really wreaking havoc on the Union command, that he is messing with their plans, and it kind of makes him more braggadocious, more rash. And he was a rash guy anyway. So his rashness is going to play a part in what's going to happen the next day when the Union Army turns around and attacks the Confederates.
Continuing our talk about this skirmish on October 8th, this is the location where Rosser will have to cut his way through Federal soldiers in order to gain the heights beyond. This could have been an absolute disaster on October 8th, but what it does is it makes Rosser more brash. The fields behind me on October 8th are filled with Union and Confederates, almost pretty much hand to hand. They draw sabers and charge into the Federals as the Federals are behind them. And so the action here is just absolutely devastating, but it's one of those things that excites Rosser's, gets him excited on the inside. It makes him feel like he's almost invincible. And again, that is going to play a role into his decisions the next day on October 9th here at Toms Brook. So we're standing here along the Sand Ridge Road. Now the back road is right over here to my left. And in the distance where those houses are, that is the Confederate position. That is Spiker Ridge, or Spiker Hill. It's more of just a kind of a ridge. But where we are, this is the Federal position. This is where Custer will begin deploying his troops after skirmishing near Mount Olive and pushing this way. Custer will have his troopers here. You'll have the 5th New York Cavalry pretty close to where I'm at right now. And there will be charges back and forth across here. But before that happens, as the men are deploying out here, the Union men and the Confederates, one of the romanticism type things of the Civil War happens. George Custer and Thomas Rosser were friends, acquaintances from West Point, and they had talked back and forth through letters several times. Now, what happens is Custer will see Rosser across the field. He will come out in front of his men, bow, tipping his hat to Rosser. Rosser, in turn, will come out in front of his men and do the same thing. Rosser was called Tex. Custer was called Fanny. That's their affectionate names for each other. But that'll happen in this area. And then the battle starts. As Custer and Rosser, again, make charge after charge. Rosser has dismounted a lot of his men, and they are down in this bottom along Toms Brook. And they are keeping the Federals at bay. This will go on for around 2 hours. It is quite the fight here on the left side of the Confederate Army. The 1st Virginia is going to be turned facing the mountain. They're going to take the flank attack that will come later. Up on the ridge up here will be Pierce's 6 guns. The artillery is going to be setting up here in a flat area. And the Confederate artillery is going to be back that way, kind of in the middle of the line. Although the Confederates are outnumbered and outgunned, really, that Confederate artillery is going to keep up a fire on these Federal guns. One reason that Rosser does that, puts the guns in the middle of the line, is because he knows it's going to draw that artillery fire. They're going to have to do counter battery fire against each other. And as they do so, his troopers, his cavalry, dismounted and mounted, are not going to have to worry as much about being targeted by the artillery. So it's a smart idea. But again, he doesn't have enough men to cover this entire area. He can't even get to the mountain fully. On top of it, the other troops in the Confederate cavalry are over near the Valley Pike. There is actually a space between Lunsford Lomax's command and Thomas Rosser's command. And that's going to play an important role toward the end of this battle, especially on this side of the Confederate line. The Union troops, once they make that flank movement, will come crashing in right across the fields behind me, crashing into the Confederate left flank, pushing them off the hill. At the same time, on the far right, near where the Laurel Brigade will be, you're going to have men from Merritt's command under Kidd, who is leading the Michiganders, which were under Custer just a couple weeks before. And that's kind of where Custer gets his fame, as leading the Michigan Brigade. Those guys are going to come in on the Confederate right. In the meantime, Custer, who has been making frontal attacks, realizing that he needs to hit the flanks, is going to make another frontal attack. He is hitting Rosser from 3 sides. And the Confederates, with their low numbers and exhaustion, are not going to be able to hold. At that point, they will retreat. Standing up here in the cemetery of the St. Matthew's Church on Sand Ridge Road, and I want to show you this. This is where the Union artillery will be here on this plateau, just over the lip there, on what's known as the military crest. But in the distance, you can see Spiker's Ridge or Spiker's Hill there. But if you look, you'll notice that the Confederate line is actually a series of ridges, and it's going to come all the way around and cross. It's going to come all the way around and go along Back Creek Road, and it's following Toms Brook. Toms Brook will come up through here, it goes around, and then it'll make a nice turn, almost 90 degrees, and head south. And that's where that Union flank attack will come in, right across that area, what's known as the Glen. But here, you can really see what a formidable position the Confederates do have. They just don't have enough men to hold it. The Union position here is actually a little bit lower, but having their guns here and being able to see this whole Confederate line And with the 6,000 troops that the Union Army has, troopers compared to the Confederates who have maybe 2,500, maybe a little bit more, they're going to be vastly outnumbered. So you're able to see really how the Union Army is going to advance against the Confederate forces. This would have been roughly the area of some New Jersey troops. I believe it's the 2nd New Jersey. They will be advancing across here. Again, there's multiple charges that go up and down these hills, and with men dismounted and mounted on both sides. Really cool place to stand and look out over the battlefield. So we're standing here at Manor Hill Drive, and behind me, this is where the Laurel Brigade will be, up here on this ridge. And you will have men down here in the bottom. Toms Brook is just inside of those weeds there. And this is all protected property, which is great. So we are able to tell the story here. But Rosser's right flank is here on this hill. Now, they are kind of facing toward behind the camera a little bit. That's where the 2nd Ohio is. But what's going to happen is that Colonel Kidd's men from Merritt's division are going to start forming up on these ridges farther out to my right. The Laurel Brigade is the flank of Rosser's men. And they are now going to have to not only contend with the 2nd Ohio and Custer's men that are over here, but now they've got Colonel Kidd coming up. At one point, the men down here in the bottom, when the flank attack starts, will start yelling that they are flanked. That's actually going to happen on both ends of the Confederate line. They'll be yelling, "We are flanked, we are flanked," and begin to retreat. When the Union flank attack does happen, the men up here will retreat. Some of them, most of them actually from this area, will be going toward Route 11, toward the Valley Pike, in an effort to get out of the way of the pursuing Union soldiers. We're standing in the area of Colonel Kidd's troops. These are the troops that come from Merritt. These are the 3 Michigan brigades and a New York brigade that are going to come here and be part of the attack on Rosser's right flank. Facing them will be the 12th Virginia and the 35th Battalion. They're going to be just down over here, right along the roadway. And as Kidd begins his attack, he is going to be able to push those Confederates out and flank the position where the Laurel Brigade is, which is the 7th Virginia and several others. He will be able to come through here with overwhelming power and flank the Confederates. At that point, they're going to have to retreat. It's an untenable position. In the meantime, over on the Valley Pike, the same thing is happening with Thomas Devon's troops as they are coming around and coming in on the flank of Lomax's men, the left flank of the Confederate Army, or the left flank of Lomax's men, over by the Valley Pike. Some of Devon's men will continue up, and they will cross the field chasing some of Rosser's men who are retreating toward the Valley Pike. So where we're standing is going to be the position that Thomas Devon's men are going to come into. The Confederates have been driven off of their defensive position. They are now retreating, some down the back road, and those that were over with the Laurel Brigade are moving back through this area, heading back toward the Valley Pike. Devon, while he is making a flank attack, also has troopers coming this way, and they're going to intercept some of those Confederates. But they're going to come right across these fields behind us and across present-day Interstate 81 and capture some of these troops and continue to drive the Confederates toward Woodstock, toward Mount Jackson, and this will be part of what becomes known as the Woodstock Races. The end of this battle is absolutely devastating for the Confederates. They have to go a long way just to get back to the embrace of the infantry 20 miles from here. So we're now in the town of Toms Brook, and we're standing along Valley Pike, Route 11. You can see it's pretty busy, but during this battle, on this part of the battlefield, you're going to have Union troops under Lowell advancing to the position where we're at. And we're actually going to go out to my left, or well, to my right. I'm behind the fire department here. There's a nice ridge that those men will be sitting on top of. Opposing them will be the Confederates, and they will be at the top of the hill, up on the Toll House Ridge, as well as across the railroad tracks. Those men are all under Lunsford Lomax. Now, Lomax has the bigger portion of Confederate cavalry, except that most of them are dispatched on other duties, so he does not have more than maybe 800 men here at Toms Brook. But he's going to occupy the ridge above Jordan's Run, which is just down in the bottom of the hill here. He's going to occupy that position. There is that space between Rosser's men and Lomax's men, which is what enables the Federals to make two flanking attacks during this battle. But when this battle starts, Aaron and his troops will move out, they'll come down the Valley Pike, Lomax's men, they'll locate them, a sharp, heavy skirmish will happen, and then those units, both armies will kind of sit and look at each other for a few minutes while they are trying to figure out what's happening on the back road. It'll almost be simultaneously that as the attacks on the back road are happening and the break of the Confederate line there, that Merritt's men will make that final charge here. And Lomax's men really do not have enough weaponry to really withstand a full-on charge. Many of those men have long rifles. They have muskets, rifle muskets instead of carbines. A lot of them don't even have pistols or sabers. So to be able to ward off an attack on Russian cavalry, especially overwhelming numbers, they're not going to be able to do that. So where we're standing, this is where, kind of in the middle almost of the Confederate line on the far Confederate right, Lomax's troops. Right here in the pike is going to be Confederate artillery under McNulty, and they are going to be shooting down through town at the Federal soldiers. The churches down here are going to get some damage down in the town. Some of the town structures will be hit. And that happens right here. When the charge is made of Lowell's men up the hill toward Lomax, this will be where they will hit. The Confederates from over in Rosser's position are starting to flow back this way as well. And as the attack happens, that is when they break. This is in conjunction with what is happening over on the back road. Union troops will push. Now the Confederates will retreat, but they will continuously try to stop at certain places to kind of ford off this attack. But eventually they're going to be placed more than 20 miles back to Mount Jackson, and this will become known as the Woodstock races, as the cavalry will start going through the town of Woodstock, not far from here, being pursued by the Federal cavalry. Again, all the way to Mount Jackson. So we're standing here along T-Berry Road on property that is preserved by the Shenandoah Valley Battlefields Foundation. And behind me up on that ridge, that is the federal position. This is almost the extreme right of the Confederate Army here at Toms Brook. This is the extreme right of Lomax's troops here at Toms Brook. And so the fighting will go back and forth across here. But again, during this part of the fight, at times, the troops will just stare at each other while they are waiting to find out what's happening on the back road. But when the charge happens, the Union troops will come, they'll sweep up the hill, they'll sweep up the Valley Pike and push Lomax's men out. Many of Lomax's men are dismounted. Again, they have rifled muskets. They're not carrying the traditional cavalry equipage. So it is very hard for them to stop this big charge that is coming at them. Also, I'll just note that this is the Tuscarora Trail, which runs through the Toms Brook battlefield. But this trail is one of the most hiked trails in Virginia, and it runs quite a ways. I cannot tell you exactly how far it runs because I don't remember exactly, but it does go up over the Little North Mountain. So pretty neat if you want to come see that as well. And you get to hike on the Toms Brook battlefield. All right, so we're staying here in the Shenandoah County Park, just outside of Toms Brook. As you can see behind me, there's a wonderful Civil War trail sign here that talks about this portion of the battle and kind of what happens around us. But where we're at, we're just behind where Lomax's men would have been. They're just over the ridge there along the Jordan's Run. And I should mention that on the day of this battle, October 9th of 1864, it is cold and it's spitting snow. Now it's raining on us right now and it's actually pretty warm. It feels nice. But in October of 1864, it's spitting snow and rain and very cold. And so the men are having to fight not only each other, but fight through the chills and things of an October day in Virginia. Lunsford Lomax, after his command is broken and begins retreating back toward Mount Jackson, up the Shenandoah Valley south, Lomax and some of his men will be captured. Lomax, however, will escape. After he is captured, he will actually knock out one of his captors and join a charge into his own men. He will join a Union charge as a Confederate officer into his own men. And he will say that he was one of the men that charged at the rebels. And he gets into his own lines and is able to escape and continue down to Mount Jackson, where Jubal Early is waiting with the infantry. So really neat. That happens right in this area. And again, this portion of the battlefield, the battle here happens as a result of what's happening on the back road, as the Union Army is pushing as hard as they can the Confederate cavalry, who've been annoying them pretty much since they turned around and began their retrograde movement up the Shenandoah Valley. From here, they'll go through Woodstock. That is known as the Woodstock Races, in which the Union cavalry will chase them through there all the way to Mount Jackson to the foot of Rude's Hill before turning back. The Union cavalry will then camp in Woodstock while the Confederates regroup at Rude's Hill. 10 days later, October 19th, that way, north of us, will be the Battle of Cedar Creek.
So we're standing in Columbia Furnace. This is along the back road. This is where Rosser's men are going to retreat to, most of them at least. They will camp here on the night of October 9th after being chased 19 miles to this location. Now, they had camped here before the battle as they were moving north, but this is a very historic area. Not only do you have Rosser's men camping here, Custer's men camping in this area, you also have actions that happened here in 1862 with Turner Ashby's cavalry. So a lot of cavalry comes through this area along the back road. But out through the fields here, And right here along the river is where Rosser's men will camp after the Battle of Toms Brook. There are still a few things standing from the furnace that was here, the building across the road, and then there is a house through the trees there where actually Jedediah Hotchkiss will have stayed at one point. So if you know who that is Thomas J. Stonewall Jackson's map maker in 1862. But this is where, for Rosser's men, the Battle of Toms Brook will basically end.
But here we are on Rude's Hill. Now, this is the position of the Confederate infantry. This is where Jubal Early's men have made it to on October 9th of 1864. And this is where Rosser's men and Lunsford Lomax's men will retreat to into the embrace of the Confederate infantry. The Union cavalry will come out of Mount Jackson, but they will not attack this spot as they are now 20 miles away from their support. This battle, the Battle of Toms Brook, when it ends, is one of the most complete victories for Union cavalry in any theater of the war. It is the largest cavalry battle here in the Shenandoah Valley. It is an all-cavalry battle, and it pretty much marks the end of dominance by the Confederate cavalry in the Shenandoah Valley. So Toms Brook, very important, gets a little bit lost and with the burning of the Shenandoah Valley and the campaigns, the third battle at Winchester, the Fisher's Hill battle, Battle of Cedar Creek 10 days later, this battle gets kind of lost. But it's extremely important as it really puts another nail in the coffin of Confederate occupation in the Shenandoah Valley.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that. Something new for us on this channel. So let us know if you enjoyed it, where you would like to see us go next. And we might bring Aaron along with us.
I'd be happy to come along.
And be sure, if you're out when wanting a tour like this of your own, look up Aaron Civil War Travels online, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. He's everywhere. If you want him to show you around at your next battlefield tour.